Okay, I think this is the first video that is really going to make me get into serious problem with the South Korean government, because I believe South Korea is not a country that is friendly to foreigners. And if you are planning on applying for the Global Korea Scholarship, be it at the undergraduate or graduate level, you might want to really sit and watch this video to the end, because some of the points that I will bring up here will help you as well in your application for the Global Korea Scholarship, so that you can succeed if you really feel like South Korea is the country that you want to go to and study, or maybe South Korea is a country that you would want to probably study and then work in the country, or maybe migrate to South Korea and work in South Korea and make some money. I'll see you in a bit.
They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do so.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Daddy Cliff channel. Today we will have to look at some points that you might want to consider before you decide on making that leap to go to South Korea as a foreign student or go to South Korea to work. There are certain things that you will want to consider before you move to any country, either for studies or for work. Now, the first thing that you would have to know is that if you are applying to go and study in South Korea, especially if you are thinking about applying for the Global Korea Scholarship, henceforth you would want to consider knowing Korean language. It is going to be very important in the next application round for the Global Korea Scholarship, be it undergraduate. Hopefully they don't take it seriously, but based on everything that I'm seeing online right now, you would probably need that Korean language before getting that scholarship. Let's look at Korean Times. In a Korean Times publication that was made on Sunday, August 13, it says the government to prioritize Korean language ability as part of immigration reform. If you go down, it says Korea will now place more of a weight on an immigrant's ability to communicate in Korean language over other skills as the country moves to accept more foreign workers after plans have been implemented to reform its immigration policy. And then if you go down again, Korean language ability is the most basic and crucial element in order for immigrants to assimilate as members of our society. As was the case for other countries, the ministry said, we are planning to give more points if those with excellent language ability wish to change their visas to E74. Now, I know you might be thinking, but this is about workers. Remember, if you have been thinking about applying for the Global Korea Scholarship, I guess you must have been hearing that in the long run, they will be considering language ability, that is, be it Korean language or English language. And statistics have shown that in most cases, students who have some level of Korean language ability have always been favored more than students who do not have any knowledge about Korean language ability. And also those who've had some experience dealing with Koreans have always had an edge over those who've never had an experience dealing with Korean. For example, if you've had the opportunity to work for maybe a Korean cultural center, if you've been able to volunteer under any form of Korean community, if you've had some first-hand touch of South Korea, if you've been to Korea maybe sometime to learn the language, and then you went back to your home country and then decided to go back to Korea to study, in case you've ever traveled to South Korea, you've experienced the culture, and you were able to explain all of that in your statement of purpose, it has always given an edge over those who've never had any prior knowledge about South Korea. But that does not mean that those who've never been to Korea or those who do not have any knowledge in Korean language have never been able to get this scholarship. But henceforth, South Korea is facing a serious population shortage, which means they will be taking into account those who can come to South Korea, work for South Korean companies, and are equally able to communicate with the locals. Because bet you, despite the fact that many Koreans do study English language, they are not really able to communicate with people in English, which means you will need that Korean language to work in a Korean office or work for a Korean company, or even communicate or buy things in the market. In short, you would need the language for your daily activity. You have to start thinking about improving your Korean language ability. So you will have to start thinking about how to learn Korean language. There are many opportunities for you to learn Korean language online for free. Sejong Institute has a lot of platforms where you can get some certificates in Korean language online. You can learn online. You don't really need to come to Korea first before learning the language. But if you can try to register for those classes online and get some of those certificates and then use it in your application as supplementary documents. They will really help you in your application for the Global Korea Scholarship. It is very important. Number 2, getting a job as a foreigner. It is almost impossible. Did I say it's impossible? No, it is not impossible. I always tell people that if you are in South Korea and you are not working, it's either you're lazy, because the issue is this: South Korea is facing a population deficit. The people do not want to give birth, and when you do not give birth, it means it's having an adverse effect on your working population. Most company owners in Korea do not have people who work for them in their firms. Most company owners in South Korea are having a serious problem finding Koreans who can work in their companies. So they sometimes resort to using foreigners. But the problem is that they work with foreigners illegally. And if you're working illegally, it means you cannot get a job contract, you cannot get an insurance, and that is why the immigration is always outside following people. It has been really serious since last year. Immediately the rules for COVID were uplifted, the immigration has been outside and it has deported a lot of people. If you go to the Korean Times, you would find a lot of statistics. Let's look at some of them. This article was posted on the 3rd of May 2023. It says 13,000 illegal immigrants leave Korea through crackdown over 2 months. It says here the government has resumed its crackdown on foreign staying or working illegally here since October after a pause due to COVID. Like I said, since last year, the Korean immigration has been out cracking down on those who are working illegally. The truth is that South Korea is not very friendly to foreigners. And this is a thing that I usually say. South Korea has a lot of jobs. They have a lot of companies. They have a lot of factories that do need foreigners to work in those factories. Company owners want people to work in their factories because the issue is that most young Koreans would prefer to work in convenience stores and jobs that are not very difficult to do. But foreigners, because they do not have that luxury of working in shops, selling convenience stores, do some of those easy jobs, they are forced to do those company jobs that have longer working hours. For example, in most cases in Korea, if you're working in South Korea, if you are working in a Korean company, know that you'd have to work from maybe 7 a.m. to like 7 p.m. in the evening, and then there might probably be a 3-hour overtime, which is compulsory, which means you must do it, which means you would finally finish work at 10 p.m. in the evening, and then you go back home in the morning. You're back in the circle 7 to 7 in the evening, and then 3 hours overtime, go back home. The working hours are really crazily wrong. So the issue is that most people are like asking, instead of preventing foreigners from working in companies where the owners need people to work in those companies, because Koreans do not want to work in those companies because of the long hours and because of the fact that the jobs are difficult to do, why not just employ foreigners? They should work there legally and then pay taxes to the government, which will help the government in their developmental plans, because if you pay tax, the tax is used to develop the country. But South Korea is yet to do that. That is why you see the foreign minister in the article that we just read in the first point saying that they are thinking about easing conditions for foreigners to come into the country to work, and that you should have Korean language ability, and then in another situation you should have at least 4 years of work experience, which are good. But then the thing is that the reason as to why South Korean government is so reluctant to allow foreigners to come and work in South Korea is that they are trying to keep their South Korean homogeneity, which means they want to keep the pure blood of South Koreans. Like they want to avoid foreigners marrying Koreans and then mixing the Korean blood. They want to keep South Korea as pure as it can be. But then the problem is that it is almost impossible because of the high cost of living. Koreans who are even rich, for example, K-pop people, like for example, most people know South Korea because of K-pop and K-drama. Even those who have a lot of money, when they get married, they still do not want to have kids. They just want to like make their money, enjoy their life, and you ask them, won't you have kids? They are like, why should I bring another person to this world and take care of that person? And the issue again also is that having kids in South Korea is like a competition, which means if you have your child, you want to make sure the child goes to the best universities, like maybe the top 3 universities in South Korea, and that competition is what causes Koreans to stress a lot. And then you would have to make sure they go to the best English academy to learn English. You'd want to make sure they go to the best school of music, best school of learning piano. Basically, some of those extracurricular activities that they will do after school. You just want to give them the best. And giving them the best means money. It means finance. And when people look at that, the only thing that they can do is probably have just one child. And having just one child cannot cover up for the population deficit that South Korea is having. There is also a toxic work culture in South Korea. What do I mean by a toxic work culture? It means South Korea is a hierarchical society. There is a lot of respect in South Korea, which means it's normal. You are supposed to respect somebody who is older than you. But then, let's say you are in a company setting, you're working for a South Korean company, a South Korean organization. It is expected that you are supposed to listen to everything your boss says. Even if your boss says something that you feel like, I don't think this is the solution to this problem. You just have to do it because the boss has said you should do it. There is no possibility for you to share ideas and be creative. The brain, the human brain, is meant to be creative, which means you cannot come to work every day and be performing the same task. You want to diversify, you want to try other things and see the outcome. No, in South Korea, it's not like that. There are set rules and policies that you must follow in the company, which means even if the boss tells you something and you feel like this thing is not the solution, what he's proposing as a solution to a problem is not really the solution. You know deep in your mind that it is not the solution. All you need to do is just execute. Do it like a robot. You cannot disobey your boss. Number 4, everything that glitters is not always gold. I know in the world, South Korean is known because of K-pop, K-drama. The things that you see on TV, you're like, oh, this country is a very beautiful country. I would want to go to South Korea. I love this guy from BTS. I love this lady who is acting in K-drama. I would really want to go to South Korea. Yeah, a simple recommendation that I will give you is that if you're thinking about going to South Korea just for studies, it is okay. Go to South Korea and obtain that degree. But if you're thinking of maybe making some money even after studies, getting a job in South Korea is not as easy as you might think. Like I said, there is always a possibility for everyone to make money in South Korea. There is always a possibility for you to teach English in South Korea. But know that in most cases, people make the money illegally. Illegally means you don't get a contract to work in that company legally. Which means, for example, if you're teaching English and the immigration gets into that class and catches you teaching English, know that you are deported. If you're working for a company and you don't have a contract, you've not signed a contract, you don't have a working visa with that company, and the immigration catches you, you are out of South Korea. They might give you an opportunity, like they might forgive you once, especially if you are a student. It also depends on the type of visa that you have. But know that as far as jobs are concerned, South Korea is not yet an attractive destination for people who want to migrate and probably study and then live and work in South Korea. I'm not the one saying it. Let's go again to my computer and look at this guy speaking about it. Here it says, attractive to bring immigrants, population expert says. This is Jungang Daily. This is an article that was published on the 3rd of August 2023. It says here, Korea isn't the major league in the international immigrants market, said Cho Young-tae, professor at Seoul National University, SNU. I have a lot of videos on Seoul National University on my channel. You might want to watch them if you want to study at Seoul National University. So he is at Graduate School of Public Health, adding it is one of the reasons Korea needs to establish an immigration agency. If you go down, you would find this statement. Some people easily misunderstand that there are no talented students in Southeast Asian countries, but the Vietnamese students are the 5th largest group of international students in the United States. The number is continuously growing as well. Let's be realistic. Between prestigious universities abroad that teach English and SNU, which university will talented students in Vietnam choose? They don't come to Korea. They see Korea as a nice country to travel to, but not a country that they want to commit their future to. If we want to attract talent from abroad, we can't stand still. The same applies to the government. Now, this is the thing about South Korea. South Korea is a good destination for many students from other countries to go and study there, but just to study and then use the degree to maybe migrate to another country like the United States, Canada, Australia, Europe. Most foreign students see South Korea as a transition country. Very few students come to South Korea and decide to commit their future to being in South Korea because the opportunities are not there, which is one of the discouraging factors as to why most students do not put a lot of interest into learning the language. Most people ask themselves, I am learning the language. Is this language really going to help me in the future? Am I really planning on making a living, making a life in South Korea? The answer is always no. Most students do not see themselves establishing a future in South Korea, making a family in South Korea, living a life, getting a permanent resident in South Korea, or even the passport. Those things are almost impossible because there is always a string to it, which is you having some level of Korean language and probably having a job. There is a point system in South Korea that can give you a permanent resident or a passport, but you have to prove that you have at least level 4 or 5 of Korean language. You must have a job and you must have been paying taxes, and maybe you must have had some other businesses in South Korea, which makes it almost impossible. It's not like, for example, countries like Japan, where when I last visited Japan, I was like kind of amazed that a lot of foreigners in Japan speak Japanese language, but that's not the case in South Korea. Do not get me wrong. People do speak Korean language in Korea, but not as much as I found it in Japan. But we can say Japan is an old country. Japan has been open to the world for a very long time. Yes, but I think South Korea can do better. South Korea, if you ask me, they are way more open than Japan. Like, for example, in Korea, it's difficult for you to move from one destination to another without finding somebody who would come and tell you, hi, how are you? Because Koreans will always want to make friends with foreigners. But the other thing about Korea again is that they make friendship with foreigners with one thing on their mind. They want to benefit behind you. For example, Koreans will only make friends with you in most cases because they want to practice their English. It's not like they are genuinely making a friendship with you. There is always a reason behind as to why most Koreans, according to my thinking though, I believe most Koreans always want to make friendship with people because they want to benefit from them by learning English. Well, like I said, I know this video is probably going to put me into serious problem with South Korean government, but then I think it is really time for South Korean government to make those reforms, open the economy, give foreigners the opportunity to work legally, pay taxes legally, because I think this video has been really long. I think we should end it there. If you know you've not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. In this channel, we are talking about South Korea. We will equally expand to talk a lot about Japan because I did not limit my educational experiences only on South Korea and Japan. I equally have other videos about scholarships in other parts of the world. You might want to subscribe so that when those videos come out, you take advantage of those scholarship opportunities and then apply. That being said, I'll see you in the next one. Best of luck in your preparation for the Global Korea Scholarship undergraduate version. Ciao.